Hello everyone, and welcome to the Tome of Silver, the show where I randomly select a game from my collection, review it, and add it to an ever-growing ranking list. Originally starting its life as a comic series in 1989, Aliens vs. Predator sought to bring two of the biggest movie monsters together in a single story. And to say that this crossover was a success would be an understatement. Crossovers are nothing new, especially not in the comics industry. Since they aren't as expensive as animated shows or films, comics have been an excellent medium to experiment with much wilder ideas, crossovers included. Such crossovers have included Batman meets the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, G.I Joe vs. Transformers, Star Trek meets Doctor Who, and IDW's Infestation crossover. Despite the number of comic crossovers that exist, few have ever launched in such a massive franchise of their own, quite like Aliens vs. Predator. Aliens vs. Predator would go on to have books, more comic series, and two of the dumbest, slockiest films that I absolutely adore. And of course, Aliens vs. Predator's massive multimedia round trip included video games. One of these games, simply titled Aliens vs. Predator, or more commonly distinguished as AVP 2010, is what we'll be looking at today. And so, without any further ado, hug some faces, collect some trophies, and let's turn the page to Aliens vs. Predator for the Xbox 360. Aliens vs. Predator is a first-person action game released in 2010 for the Xbox 360, PlayStation 3, and PC. Despite just being called Aliens vs. Predator, this is actually the third entry in a line of first-person action games created by Rebellion Development. This first entry, also called Aliens vs. Predator, was released exclusively for Windows and Mac in 1999. One of the biggest grabs of this title was that it had three distinct campaigns, allowing you to play as an alien, Predator, and Colonial Marine. The game was very well received, and as such, a sequel was greenlit. Aliens vs. Predator 2 was released in 2001 for Windows and 2003 for Mac OS, though this time, development was given to Monolith Productions. It followed a similar formula as its predecessor, allowing you to play three campaigns, but this time featured online multiplayer. AVP 2 garnered similar praise, especially for its multiplayer, and it was another success for AVP video games. Following that, no word on a follow-up was ever given until 2008, when Sega announced that a new Aliens vs. Predator game was being developed. Perhaps most surprising was Rebellion. The developers behind the first AVP title were returning to helm the creation of this new entry, rather than Monolith. It was later confirmed that Lance Henriksen, the actor best known for his role as Bishop in the Aliens films, as well as Carl Bishop Weyland in the first Aliens vs. Predator film, would be reprising his role as Weyland for the new title. The game would act more of a series reboot, rather than a follow-up to AVP 2, hence it simply being titled Aliens vs. Predator. They probably could have afforded to make this a bit more creative with using like a subtitle or something, as it would mark the 7th AVP video game to just be called Aliens vs. Predator, but I digress. In February of 2010, Aliens vs. Predator would finally be released. Let's take a look. The game opens with the current head of the Weyland-Yutani Corporation, Carl Bishop Weyland, opening the doors to what appears to be an ancient temple belonging to a long-forgotten species of predator. However, opening the door releases a massive pulse of energy, an act that sets in motion the events of all three campaigns. That's right, much like its predecessors, Aliens vs. Predator maintains the feature of having three campaigns, allowing you to play as a Colonial Marine, a Xenomorph, and a Predator. Each of the three campaigns offers its own story, though all three stories tie into each other under a single overarching narrative, and their own unique gameplay style. I will tackle each of the three campaigns separately rather than try and discuss all three simultaneously, as each campaign plays distinctly enough to be considered its own miniature game. First, let's start off with the Marine campaign.
Last wave inbound. Strap in and hold tight. That means you too, Rookie.
In the Marine campaign, you play as the Rookie, a new recruit into the US Colonial Marines. You and your squad are leaving the USS Marlow when a Predator ship decloaks and destroys the Marlow. The shockwave of the blast causes the Marine ship to fly out of control, and the Rookie is knocked unconscious by debris. Waking up alone with no sign of your squad, you are contacted by Corporal Tequila, who helps guide Rookie through what is now a xenomorph-infested nightmare. The Marine campaign plays like a pretty standard first-person shooter. You can hold up to 3 weapons, which ranges from the classic pulse rifle, a pistol, a shotgun, a flamethrower, or a sniper rifle. You can pick up stims to heal your health in a pinch, and you can tap the right bumper to perform a melee attack to knock back enemies that get a bit too close. Honestly, as far as shooter mechanics go, the Marine campaign style is very simplistic, but that can still work as long as what you're shooting is fun. Thankfully, that's very much the case. For the most part, your main adversaries as the Marine will be the Xenomorphs, though there is the occasional combat android and predator thrown the player's way. The aliens here are actually pretty clever. As you navigate the various locations, there are tons of places obscured in shadow, which the alien will constantly take advantage of. You have a motion tracker, which will give you a rough idea of where the Xenomorphs are, but you'll need to keep your eyes peeled to find them. The aliens will take pot shots at you, attacking you swiftly before jumping back into the shadows, which I gotta say was really cool and added a feeling of tension as I frantically searched around for whatever just hit me. Even if you spot an alien and shoot at it, it'll try to jump to a different wall and disguise itself again. The alien isn't just going to wait there for you to shoot them. But when you do shoot them, man, it feels good. The aliens make all their iconic screeches, and when you land a killing blow on a Xenomorph, you're given this satisfying crack sound as you penetrate their exoskeleton. The Marine campaign does a great job of using sound to make the player feel small. You're one human trapped in a battle between 2 species much deadlier than you are. And as you explore the different areas of the game, you'll hear the hissing of Xenomorphs and the echoed laugh of the predators stalking you. This extends to the visuals, as you watch other Marines get decimated by alien swarms and see the strung up bodies of those who encountered the predators. They all do a wonderful job setting the tone. Quickly going back to the topic of the game's use of sound, the sound design as a whole feels authentic to both franchises it pays tribute. The pulse rifle, the motion tracker, the Xenomorph screeches, the predator's roars, everything sounds exactly as it should. Meanwhile, the OST consists of a proper orchestral score, sounding as if the tracks were taken straight out of a film, giving the moment-to-moment gameplay a cinematic feel, which I felt greatly enhanced the experience. A weakness though is the Marine campaign can be beaten in about 3 hours, and the story definitely suffers for this. A lot of things feel like they just happen, without a whole lot of development. About partway through the campaign, Rookie and Tequila become resolved to put a stop to Weyland-Yutani, but basically nothing in the story really motivates them to do so unless I just missed something. They kinda just realize he's evil and say, yeah, let's go kill him. I also don't know if there's supposed to be some sort of romance between Rookie and Tequila. Partway through the campaign, Tequila gets face-hugged and infected with a Xenomorph, with the only way to save her being to put her in a stasis pod until a permanent solution becomes available. As he does so, the Rookie affectionately strokes her head, and it kinda comes out of nowhere. For pretty much the entirety of the game, Tequila just gives instructions on what the Rookie should do next. But the Rookie is a silent protagonist, so he sure as heck isn't saying anything back, meaning these characters have next to no chemistry with each other. The main villain, Weyland, is also incredibly half-baked. We know next to nothing about his motivations for researching the aliens and predators. He talks about his interest in them and how he wants to reach the next step in human evolution, but he never explains how or why. You can find some audio logs of Weyland explaining his thoughts on the situation, which does mitigate my issues a little bit. But if you need to find hidden collectibles to give your antagonist an ounce of complexity, then it's still not a good character. These recordings should be the icing on the cake, not the cake itself. Overall, the story isn't very good, and definitely one of the game's weaker aspects. Despite this weak story and short runtime, each level in the campaign does offer new and unique challenges to keep the experience fresh, and I think it does a very good job. This can include a one-on-one fight with a predator in an arena, fighting a predator-alien hybrid, or getting to use the iconic smart gun against a horde of aliens. Probably my favorite was the nightclub section. Early in the campaign you enter a nightclub, which turns on and starts blasting music and flashing lights. The loud music blocks out the noise of your motion tracker and the hissing noise made by Xenomorphs, some of the few indicators to help you find the enemy. Instead, you need to use the strobe lights in the club and your own eyesight to find the Xenomorphs before they swarm you. This section was exhilarating and probably my favorite part of the campaign. During each of the 3 stories, you can find collectibles hidden around the area. For the alien, it's canisters of the alien queen's jelly. For Predator, it's skull belts, and for the Marine, it's the previously mentioned audio logs. Of the 3 campaigns, the Marine is the only one that has a collectible that's worthwhile. Outside of unlocking an achievement, you get nothing for finding the canisters or skull belts, but at least with the audio logs, you get some brief audios of experiments and reports going on at each location, so that motivated me to find these hidden items more than it did for the Alien and Predator. The Marine campaign is also where I encountered the most bugs, and I'm not talking about the xenomorphs. The game froze on me during a loading screen, I fell through the floor when getting on an elevator, and I also had whatever this is happen. I couldn't move normally, but I could jump and move forward, leading to me bouncing around to progress until a xenomorph got me. I didn't run into any glitches while playing as either the Alien or Predator, nor do I recall this ever being an issue during previous playthroughs, so maybe I just got unlucky. But I still feel it's important to make mention that these can happen. All in all, the Marine campaign is solid. The story's not good, but the gameplay was thrilling, with clever AI for the aliens and plenty of unique moments to keep the player invested in what comes next. Now that we're finished up with the Marine, let's take a look at the Alien campaign. In the Alien campaign, we play as a xenomorph captured and experimented on by Weyland in one of his facilities. Our adorable Xeno is named 6, due to her being the 6th specimen secured by Weyland. However, the shockwave created when Weyland opens the Predator Temple knocks out the power in the facility, allowing 6 to escape from her restraints and free her siblings, including the Xenomorph Queen. After the escape from the facility, the story of the Alien campaign becomes practically non-existent. Due to xenomorphs lacking language and being for the most part beasts that act purely on killer instinct, it's incredibly difficult to write a narrative with one of these creatures acting as the protagonist. This leads to each mission kinda just happening, and the ending really sneaks up on you. Though the overall campaign does play an important role, showing how things got so bad by the start of the Marine and Predator campaign, I do wish it had a bit more going on. The Alien's gameplay has a large focus on stealth. Being a single xenomorph, it doesn't take much to get you killed, so you need to play each situation carefully. As a xenomorph, you can hold the right trigger to climb up any surface, including walls and even being able to hang upside down from the ceiling. Due to how fast the alien moves, and how easily they move from surface to surface, it can be very easy to get disoriented when moving around. But that's a small price to pay for the excellent freedom of movement, and stalking humans while upside down on a ceiling feels really damn satisfying. The alien has both a light and heavy attacks that you can use to kill its prey. If you land enough hits on the opponent, you can grab them from the front to perform a brutal finisher. While these are really cool to see, they can take a long time to complete, and there's no way to cancel them once they start, so starting a finisher while another target is shooting you is a surefire way to end up dead. To reduce the risk of dying, you'll want to sneak up behind an opponent. Approaching an enemy stealthily from behind will allow you to perform a stealth kill, which instantly takes out the target without alerting anyone else in the area, as long as you aren't seen doing it, of course. To make doing this easier, the game has included a few neat mechanics you can do to change the situation to your advantage. Just as the alien would make use of darkness in the Marine campaign, the darkness is your greatest ally in the Alien campaign. When in shadow, the reticle in the center of the screen will turn black, indicating you can't be seen by an enemy. You also have the ability to kill the lights in an area, as attacking the light will take it out, further increasing your advantage. Lastly, you can also perform a hiss, which comes out more as a loud screech, which will alert your opponent that you're in the area, and thus put them a bit more on guard, but also cause them to investigate, possibly allowing you to lure them to where you are in hiding, to silence them for good. As you can tell by the finishing moves, it becomes especially apparent in the Alien and Predator campaign that AVP has a lot of blood and gore. The Marine campaign certainly doesn't shy away from blood, but in the latter two campaigns people explode into a bloody mist, spines are ripped out, and some characters are even hurt so bad they vomit. This game is rated M, and it runs with it. Given the origins of both Alien and Predator, this was definitely the right call, as the executions fit both species of monsters well, and the finishers would lose a lot of their satisfaction if they were made for a teen-rated game. Going back to the Alien's gameplay, damage taken during each stealth segment will restore over time, albeit quite slowly. If you're in an area that has hostiles and you find yourself low on health, you can approach one of your fallen victims to perform a head bite. Head bites will give 6 a well-earned snack, and restore your health to full.
Nice.
I am definitely biased due to my intense love of aliens, but the Xenomorph has my favorite playstyle of all 3 campaigns, and I had a non-stop blast throughout. It's for that reason that I was incredibly disappointed that the Alien campaign is easily the shortest of the 3, lasting about 2 hours in total. I had a fantastic time from beginning to end, but with how short the campaign was and how suddenly the ending sneaks up on you, it left me wanting a bit more than we got. It's also playing through this campaign that we start to notice a few other issues that weren't quite as noticeable with the Marine. First, graphically, the game does not look very good. It's by no means awful, but textures can look a bit muddy and the visual style doesn't hold up especially well. This issue was much less noticeable in the Marine campaign due to its superior use of lighting for atmosphere. However, as both the Alien and Predator have better vision than the Marines, there is nowhere near the same level of lighting used in their campaigns, and it makes the poor visuals much more apparent. Second of all, it's here that it becomes apparent that every location is shared between all 3 campaigns. None of the campaigns has an area that you won't go to in another. On one hand, it makes sense why this was done, as all 3 stories take place in the same area and are interconnected with one another, so of course the same locations would be seen. On the other hand, this can lead to visual fatigue, as you enter the same location as the Predator you've already seen as both the Alien and Marine. A couple of locations exclusive to each campaign would have gone a long way in adding a bit more visual variety and uniqueness. Well, that's it for the Alien campaign. Let's move on to the Predator campaign. Here we play as Dark, a young Predator who has just completed his rite of passage to earn the rank of Elite. Just as he earns his new title, Dark is sent to investigate a distress signal sent out by a fallen Youngblood on a nearby planet. Predator code dictates that the bodies of the fallen be destroyed to avoid Predator technology falling into another species' hands. After finding and disposing of the Youngbloods, Dark becomes aware of the presence of a Xenomorph Predator hybrid. Believing the creature to be an abomination, Dark is ordered to hunt and dispose of the creature to remove this blight upon the Predator's honor. The Predator campaign is definitely the most interesting story-wise, as the communications with your superiors gives an outlook on how the Predators think, which hasn't been done in a whole lot of previous AVP media. During the journey, you also get to enter some ancient Predator temples and get details on the first ever hunt of a Xenomorph, which is all rather interesting. Still, the story at its core remains pretty basic. It's clear that story just isn't AVP's strong suit. Gameplay-wise, the Predator starts off similar to the Alien, where you need to use stealth to take out your opponents. Only this time, instead of hiding in darkness, you use the Predator's iconic cloaking ability. To help you in catching foes unaware, you can also create a distraction using the Predator's ability to mimic voices and lure soldiers away from their squad. By pressing B or circle, you can cycle through the Predator's visions, allowing you to access a thermal visor. The visor is great in letting you spot human enemies, as they can blend in with their environments when you're watching them from the treetops. AVP does a good job at making sure you don't exclusively stay in thermal vision too. While the thermal visor is great for finding humans, it can also be hard to distinguish what everything else is in the environment. So you're better off using the visor to find your target and switching back to normal vision to make your way towards them. Additionally, Xenomorphs don't have a heat signature, and will be practically invisible while using thermal. In your regular vision, their black bodies become much more visible, and later in the campaign, you'll get a visor that will allow you to better spot Xenomorphs, highlighting them in a bright green. But in the reverse of thermal, human targets will be rendered black. You'll have to deal with both targets over the course of the game, so proper use in cycling through your different visions will be what helps you succeed and not get overwhelmed. As the campaign progresses, it does shift a bit more towards action than stealth, as human enemies will become less common and more Xenomorphs will be thrown your way. Xenomorphs don't get fooled by your cloaking, so stealth is no longer an option against them. This is where you'll need to use your close quarters combat. You have a light attack, a strong attack, and a block. The Xenomorphs can perform the exact same attacks, and so the combat works kinda like rock, paper, scissors. Light attacks will stop heavy attacks, strong attacks break through blocks, and blocks stagger enemies that try and hit with a light attack. I think mechanically this is one of the weaker systems in the game. Having a rock paper scissors style system in what is fast-paced combat felt clunky and meant I spent more time waiting around for the xenomorph to try and make a move before I responded in kind. And also, fighting a xenomorph in what effectively feels like a round of Punch-Out, where it's blocking its attacks and then countering, felt really silly. Luckily, close quarters combat isn't the only way to deal with the alien menace. As you progress throughout the campaign, you'll slowly start to build up a repertoire of weapons. You start off with the beloved shoulder plasma caster, which will basically disintegrate whatever foe it hits. However, using the caster uses energy, which is also used for your cloak, so you want to be careful not to use it more than necessary. As you reach further levels, you'll eventually receive plasma mines, which I think I used all once during my playthrough. Smart discs which do little damage, but can hit multiple times as you guide it after it's thrown. Finally, you get the combi stick, a spear that uses no energy and can kill a target instantly. But due to it being a spear, you need incredibly precise aim for it to strike. All these tools together, combined with the waves of enemies you'll be fighting in the latter half of the campaign, can make for some frantic and fast-paced action, making you feel pretty badass with how many threats you'll be able to handle. I do think I preferred the stealth aspect of the gameplay in the first half of the game a bit more, but the more action-packed segments were plenty fun in their own right. Though the story as a whole is weak, each campaign's ending sets up a really cool premise for a follow-up game. It's teased that the next game would have taken place on the Xenomorph homeworld, with all three protagonists, Rookie, Dark, and Six, engaging each other in a final conflict, which sounds really friggin' awesome. Unfortunately, it's been 12 years since the game first released, and nothing has been teased about a possible follow-up, making this showdown unlikely to ever see the light of day. What can be said for the three campaigns is that all of them are incredibly fun in their own right, each offering distinct gameplay that does justice to whichever species of killer you've chosen to play. At the same time, each campaign was a little too short, with the entire game being completable in around 8 or 9 hours. The length in of itself isn't a problem. There are plenty of games with that runtime that are excellent. The difference is those games use that time on a single story and gameplay style, which leads to those games feeling much more complete and satisfying as you reach their conclusion. Here, those 8 hours are stretched over 3 separate stories, leaving none of them feeling all that gratifying. It's like that phrase, if you chase 2 rabbits, both will get away. Despite its limited runtime, EVP spreads itself thin by trying to do too much, and it leaves each campaign feeling incomplete as opposed to if they focused on one gameplay style. And since only the Marine has collectibles worth a damn, there's not much incentive to replay these stories unless you feel like trying on a harder difficulty. Now, there is one more offering of single-player content, that being Survivor Mode. This is a pretty standard Survivor challenge. You play as a Marine and try and survive against as many waves of aliens as you can. Considering how fun I found shooting Xenos to be, heck yeah, I'd gladly play a couple rounds of this every now and again. I do wish there was more than 2 maps to choose from, but getting this as a bonus alongside 3 campaigns does make me a bit more forgiving. Plus, this mode was also available online. Aliens vs Predator came included with a multiplayer mode, which would have you playing one of 3 different species in a 3-faction deathmatch. This multiplayer was awesome. Incorporating the different game styles in the campaign into multiplayer meant each player had to go about getting kills a different way. Xenos had to be sneaky, Predators had to make proper use of their tools, and Marines that stuck together in a squad were incredibly deadly. I love this multiplayer, and sunk a lot of hours into it back in the day. Back in the day? What am I, 70? Of course, this being the year 2022, 12 years after the game's release, the online is all but dead. But if you can somehow get enough friends together to form a lobby, give it a shot. It's chaotic, but satisfying. Aliens vs Predator 2010 is a solid game. Each of the 3 playable species offers a new but equally fun gameplay system that makes it stand apart. While the game is less of a complete package nowadays due to limited online multiplayer opportunities and the story leaving much to be desired, the game can be bought for cheap, around $10 or so on eBay, and though the enjoyment doesn't last as long as one may want, I think what's on offer here is worth a playthrough. As an Aliens vs Predator fan, I replay this game frequently and continue to have a great time. But in the same instance, I can't deny that the game has a lot of shortcomings, which others may not be as forgiving towards as I am. With all that in mind, Aliens vs Predator will claim the number 7 spot in our ranking. It's a short, fun romp that I think anyone with an interest in playing as an alien or predator, or hoping for a marine bug hunt better than the likes of Aliens Colonial Marines, will have a good time with. Not perfect, but fun nevertheless. When this video is released, it will actually be my last video of 2022. Not really sure if Aliens vs. Predator is the right video to lead us into the holiday season, but that's how the randomizer goes, I suppose. This year has really been an experience. Between starting this channel, visiting all these old games of mine, and really just learning how to edit for the first time, I'm really glad I started this project. To anyone who has taken the time out of your day to watch some guy on the internet rank his video game collection, thank you. It really means a lot. I hope to continue making videos worthy of that viewership as we head into 2023. As this is the last video of the year, I'll be including a little compilation at the end showing the ranking list we've accumulated this year, taking us from the very bottom all the way to the top of our list, so we can see how the ranking list definitively stands as we end off the year. Once again, thank you all so much for watching. I know it's still a bit early in the month, but Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, whatever you celebrate. Take care, and may we see each other again when we turn to the next chapter in the Tome of Silver.